So let's begin the Q&A. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions, and I'll just get started. So question number 1, how do I get over the shame of infidelity and move forward? Excellent question. So my first question for you would be, what is your shame telling you? If you want to release your shame and let go of your shame, you'll have to understand the thoughts causing that shame. So I would highly recommend that you look at those thoughts, you write them down, you spend some time with them. I would also encourage questioning them, because when we have a thought that creates shame, shame isn't a helpful emotion, and shame isn't going to be the emotion that helps you heal from this infidelity. Even though you're the one who committed it, you still have to do some healing from it. So shame is not going to help you there. So writing the thoughts down that are creating the shame and questioning those thoughts is going to be crucial for you. You can feel remorse and sadness and pain without feeling the shame, but also know that you have to allow the shame and listen to the thoughts that are creating that shame. Because if you try to brush past the shame and just bypass it and pretend like, you're past it already, the shame will persist and stick around way longer than it needs to. And again, that's not going to contribute to your healing. That's not going to be helpful for you or for your marriage. So shame and guilt, I wrote another note here that I want to read. Shame and guilt are not going to help you here, even though they might be the loudest, strongest emotions you're feeling. That doesn't mean they are the ones that you actually need in order to move forward. Accountability, honesty, and vulnerability will help you here. And it's important also to note that infidelity does not mean that the relationship can't be rebuilt in a stronger, more connected and loving way, but it is, of course, an indication that you need to assess what's going on here. And outside of a client-coach relationship, the best guidance I can offer you is to tune in. Being out of alignment and out of touch with yourself, you mentioned, was one of the reasons why you got here in the first place. So distancing yourself even further from your intuition by staying in shame will prolong the problem. There's probably a lot going on in your mind right now, and so I'd encourage you to seek out quiet and peace so that you can listen to yourself rather than to the spiraling thoughts and the shame and the guilt. One more thing I'll say before I move on is that shame thrives when we don't look at it. Shame thrives when we hide it, when we hide ourselves, when we hide parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of. So just know that every single time you can look your shame in the eye, every single time you can actually listen to the thoughts that are creating the shame, you put yourself in a position to release it a little bit more, to loosen it, to wiggle away from it. And again, that's not bypassing it. You don't want to bypass the shame. You don't want to avoid it. You don't want to pretend it's not there. You want to look at the shame so that the object of the shame becomes less toxic for you, so that the shame actually has less of a grip on you. That is how you move past the shame of infidelity. Okay, so number 2, how to heal your codependency while you're still in a relationship, and how to heal when you're both recovering codependents. So I got 4 questions about this, I think, so I kind of combined them all into one. So how to heal your codependency while you're still in a relationship, and how to heal when you're both recovering codependents. Lots of communication, lots of not taking responsibility for their paths and their process, and lots of celebration and acknowledgement. So if you're in a relationship doing healing without your partner's involvement, maybe they're not codependent, or they just don't want to be involved in healing codependency, or they're just not on board, whatever. You need to take it slow with yourself and implement the changes that you want to make without looking for their permission, without looking for their excitement, without looking for their encouragement, any of that. Sure, they might offer that at some point, but it will not serve you and the relationship to try to manage or control their experience of you healing and changing. So notice when you are communicating with them around this, when you're doing it from a truly open and detached place, versus when you sense that you're looking for a reaction from them, or you're trying to control them or trying to change them. And you need to ask yourself, are you going to be okay if they don't change? Are you going to be okay if they don't want to change? Are you going to be okay in the relationship if they don't want to heal their codependent tendencies? Another question that I would explore is, is part of you hoping that they will change in the future? Does part of you want them to change eventually if they see you changing, if they see you growing, if they see you doing new things and engaging in new patterns in the relationship? Is part of you attached to the hope of them changing in the future? Because what can happen so many times is, people get in relationships for potential. People get in relationships for the hope of a different person in the future. And I think it's so important in relationships to actively choose to be with the person in front of you or choose to not be with them. So if you are in a relationship for potential, or if you are in a relationship with under the condition of like the hope of them being a different person in the future, that is not where you want to be. That's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for them. It's not fair to either one of you. So I would just explore that. So another thing I want to say here is that it's really easy to focus on what is wrong, on what's going wrong, on what doesn't feel right. But you have to be in charge of celebrating yourself and acknowledging your growth. Do it regularly, and I would highly encourage you to ritualize it, to make it into a ritual, whatever feels great to you. Get creative and ask yourself, how do you want to be acknowledged and recognized and celebrated for the work that you're doing, and take ownership of that. Also, with this question, how do you heal your codependency when you're in a relationship with someone? This question, I think, is best answered in the specifics. So instead of asking this general question that I received a few different times this week, how can I heal my codependency when I'm in a relationship? Ask, for example, how do I want to learn boundary setting in this relationship? How do I want to learn to trust my intuition in this relationship? How do I want to learn forgiveness in this relationship? How do I want to learn how to not internalize things and take other people's emotions personally in this relationship? How do I want to let go of jealousy in this relationship? How do I want to release my victim mindset in this relationship? And explore. I think there's a lot waiting for you when you get very specific about the elements of your codependency that you want to heal in the relationship. So that is the best way that I recommend doing that. Question number 3. What is the line between being an empathetic person and giving too much of yourself? So good. You know the answer to that question. So if you're asking this question, it means that you're fully aware of where you have overstepped your own boundaries, where it has gone past the point of healthy empathy and into the point of self-sacrifice. You have to be responsible for discerning when you've crossed that line and decide what you want to do from there. Because interestingly enough, other people are not responsible for managing our own internal boundaries, just like we're not responsible for managing or maintaining or taking care of other people's well-being, other people's emotions, other people's boundaries with themselves, all of that. So empathy and self-abandonment don't have to go hand in hand, but they often do because of what we're taught that kindness looks like. Let go of any thoughts that you're thinking that tell you that you need to self-neglect in order to be a loving, kind, compassionate, empathetic person. Empathy does not mean that you put other people's needs and wants above your well-being and time and priorities. And empathy does not mean that you take responsibility for someone else's emotions and actions. You gotta clean up the way that you're thinking about that. And remember, love without boundaries is enmeshment. It's not real love. Question number 4, how do you detach with love? How do you lovingly detach? I suggest that you reframe your thoughts and belief about what love looks like or should look like. If you have a narrative that says that you cannot lovingly set boundaries, or that you cannot lovingly say no to someone, or that you cannot lovingly take care of yourself first, then you'll obviously have to rethink that and build new beliefs before You'll even allow yourself to entertain the thought of detaching from this person. So I would also recommend that you trust yourself in the ways that you feel the need to create some separation or distance or space. You know that their feelings around this are theirs. The other person, that you're detaching from is going to have thoughts and feelings about you getting some distance, getting some space, getting some separation, some individualization. And those emotions are theirs entirely. So definitely, if you want to lovingly detach, I would say my number one recommendation would be to allow them to feel however they are going to feel about it. They do not need to be happy about your detachment in order for you to do it and be okay through doing it. So understand that if you notice the urge to try to manage their emotions around you detaching, or if you try to control their response or reaction, just again, be aware of that. Be grateful for the awareness. Be grateful for that split second of awareness that allows you the space to choose something different. That awareness, and you only ever need half a second of it, when you notice you are trying to take responsibility to manage to control their emotions about the way that you've decided to live your life, you can just say, I'm going to choose something different now. I notice, I can see that I'm doing this. I know that I'm trying to manage their emotions because then it will make me feel more comfortable about this scary step that I'm taking. But I'm living in a new way. I'm choosing a new path. I'm behaving in a different way. And now is my chance to do that. It's all practice, you guys. This is another thing. Don't take any of this too seriously. Like, yeah, it can feel like a big deal. Setting boundaries, detaching with love, healing from infidelity. Like, yes, these are big topics, I'll admit, but understand that this is all iteration. It's all practice. It's all experimentation. And that's what life is, period. So you're never gonna get it, quote unquote, right. And you can't get it wrong. Like that doesn't, I don't think that there's such a thing as getting it wrong when you're experimenting with the way that you do this. I also think it's a lie to kind of tell yourself that you could do it, quote unquote, perfectly the first time. Like, we want to get to a point where we can, for example, lovingly detach or set healthy boundaries and maintain them in a way that feels good for us and that, is loving and kind to the people around us and all that. And like, great, if you want to do that, then get ready to like fall on your face a little bit. If that's something you want to do not be under any preconception that that path to that end goal is going to look clean or neat or tidy, because it will not. I promise you that. It absolutely will not. Okay. Question number 5. I think we might get through all of these. Yeah, this would be awesome. Question number 5. How do you get used to familial rejection when challenging racism and stereotypes? My answer is that you don't try to get used to it. I think that you definitely need to allow yourself to feel any emotions you might be experiencing around this. Are you willing to choose familial rejection over comfort, really, in this area? Are you willing to continue to stand up for your beliefs or act in accordance with your values despite the discomfort that comes with it? You just have to ask yourself that. And of course, just like we talked about with the infidelity question earlier, if you're experiencing shame around this, if there's like the shame hiding in the corner and it's just like waiting to come out and like hit you in the face, understand that shame is not going to help you here. Shame is not going to help you figure out how to act in alignment with your values in the face of judgment from other people. So If you have any kind of judgment or any kind of shame or any kind of idea of how you quote unquote should behave in this situation, just say thank you so much, but please step aside so that I can listen to my intuition here and figure out how I want to move forward. So if you do decide that you want to choose the discomfort of familial rejection, whatever that means and looks like for you, so that you can then act in accordance with your values, again, whatever that looks like for you, then you need to support yourself through that. So very, very important step here. Ask yourself what you need. Ask yourself what kind of support you need in order to be able to do this in a sustainable way, in order for you to be able to withstand criticism or judgment from the people who are closest to you. What kind of support do you need in order to do that? And then give yourself that. Take responsibility for that. Know that that will change. Know that the kind of support that you need on a day-to-day basis around that will change, and that's perfect. I would also recommend you to envision the reality that you then want to live into around this. So if you want to get to a place where you feel fully aligned with your values, fully aligned with your priorities, your the things that are really most important to you at your core, what will that look like even with judgment and rejection from others? How will you be able to handle that in the future? Think about what that is actually practically going to look like, because you'll be able to step into that slowly, step by step. And again, it's going to change. And that is perfectly fine. Just know that the process you're in is perfect. Because again, like I talked about in the last question, if you think that the process to get there, to get to that future that you're envisioning, if you think that's going to look clean or tidy or well practiced or poised, it absolutely will not. And that's perfect. You're earning this future that you're envisioning with your experimentation, and that's amazing. So also, one more thing that I'll say is just to really let yourself release any attachment that you might have to changing those other people. If there is any part of you that is placing hope on changing other people, controlling them, anything like this, you're hurting yourself with that hope. That's so funny to say. You're hurting yourself with that hope, but changing them cannot be a part of your. It's so interesting. When changing people is like a goal of ours, it's just guaranteed disappointment, guaranteed resentment, guaranteed totally unnecessary conflict and discomfort. So anything that you can do, again, to support yourself and to release attachment to having these other people in your life change, explore that, ask yourself what it looks like, and take ownership of that, take responsibility for that. Okay, so question number 6. I need to get hugs and kisses and to hear I love you from my husband, but then I question it because I asked for it. How do I stop? Excellent question. I think this is honestly so common in relationships. So I want to say a couple things. First, question the need. Why do you need those things? It might be because you can't believe that he loves you without those things. And if that's the case, I would highly recommend that you try to look for the ways that he does show you that he really loves you, in the ways that he naturally expresses those things. What are the ways that he shows you he loves you? What are the ways that he likes to be there for you and be a wonderful partner to you? And notice what you're choosing to focus on. If the majority of your time in that relationship is spent focusing on the deficits, focusing on what he isn't doing that you are telling yourself you need him to do, guaranteed your relationship is going to be pretty painful and uncomfortable. But just think, how might I be able to shift my focus to things that I know that he likes to do that demonstrate care for him. I think that's really important. And just know that your distress around this is due to where you're placing your focus. So spend some time looking at that, analyzing that. And then the next part of the question is how, when he does give me those things, then I question them because I asked for them. Explore that too. Like, what would you need to let go of in order to enjoy when you make this request and he does give you hugs and kisses and tells you that he loves you? What would you need to let go of in order to actually let yourself enjoy that? This reminded me of a client this weekend. On one of our group calls, she asked about feedback, and she talked about how receiving negative feedback is something that she like internalizes so immediately. She'll like receive negative feedback, or she'll interpret something that someone says as negative feedback for her, and she'll immediately take it on and like use it to mean horrible things about herself, and she'll try and like analyze all the ways in which she needs to change and be better and like improve and whatever. But then when she receives positive feedback in any way, she rejects it immediately, questions it immediately, demands proof of it, needs convincing. And so with this, I think it's so funny. It's so similar. You are focusing on the deficit of what you want in this relationship. And then when you do receive them as a result of you asking for them, you immediately question them. So I would explore there, like, what is it, again, what is it that you would have to let go of? What beliefs would you have to let go of? Beliefs about yourself, beliefs about the relationship, beliefs about your partner, would you have to let go of in order to receive and genuinely receive? Receive with gratitude, receive with love, receive with, to receive and not reject in the same breath, like to receive and to receive fully. I really think you should spend some time journaling on those questions, maybe speaking out loud on a walk. That really helps too for the brain to process. So the next question is 7. Why I have the need to want the people I love to agree with me on my beliefs. Great. Okay. So again, why? Why? This can be something that so many of us take for granted, and that's fine. You could just know that you want to be around like-minded people. That's fine. But this person already has people she cares about, and they don't have the same beliefs, and sounds like she still wants to love them. She doesn't want to like excommunicate them. So in that case, it would really serve you to explore why. Why do I want the people that I love to agree with me on my beliefs? What do you think that you will be able to feel if they do? What do you think that you're not able to feel when they don't believe the same things that you do? Those are 2 very specific questions. Number 1, what do you think you'll be able to feel if they do agree with your beliefs? And number 2, what do you think you're not able to feel because of this difference in belief? If you can hear the landscaper outside, I apologize. It's like 60 something degrees outside. It's so beautiful today. So first nice day they're out there. How might you be able to access those feelings now without them changing? So when you think about what emotions you might be able to feel towards these people if they did change and suddenly agreed with your beliefs, how might you be able to access those feelings now without them changing? Just explore that question, see what comes up. You might immediately reject it, and that's a good thing. I love that. Things that we're so often like immediately repulsed by or triggered by actually have a lot to teach us. So really, really ask yourself that question. How could I feel the way I want to feel about these people, even if their beliefs don't change? Holy shit, what would have to happen in order to do that? You get to choose what you think about them, and it would probably create more love for them inside of you if you stopped thinking that you need or want them to agree with you. What would it look like to love them anyways? What would you need to let go of in order to do that? Explore that. So this is very similar to the last question about what would you have to let go of in order to really receive that love? Again, what are you currently thinking and believing about this situation, about yourself, about these people that you would have to let go of in order for you to feel how you want to feel towards them without them changing? Okay, question number 8. How to deal when you are the black sheep in the family, how to maneuver uncomfortable conversations with parents, and how to not hold it against them and be angry and still love them. Beautiful question. So if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling anger, if you're feeling resentment towards your parents or your family, I would question all of the thoughts that make you feel that way. When you say black sheep, quote unquote, get more specific with that. It might be something like, I'm gay and my parents are homophobic. And so you translate that to mean that you're the black sheep. It might mean that you're an atheist and your parents are religious and you translate that to mean black sheep. It might mean I never want to watch football and my family is obsessed with sports. And so you translate that to black sheep. But when you say black sheep, like, what does that mean to you? Does that mean someone who is unloved, someone who's rejected, somebody who's unworthy of love, someone who is incapable of being loved and appreciated, someone who is wrong? Like, the more specific you can get around exactly where you feel rejection and exactly the meaning you're assigning to the word black sheep, the more specific you can get, the less overwhelming all of this will feel. And the easier those answers will come to you, the answers of how can I love them anyways? How can I navigate these challenging conversations with them? How can I deal when I'm the black sheep? Again, that is going to seem so much more manageable and maybe even something that you're like grateful for once you get less general and more specific about it. So you don't have to be angry at your family ever if you don't want to, but also sometimes anger can be really, really healthy. So I want you to be cognizant of when you might be trying to avoid this perfectly natural, perfectly normal, perfectly healthy human emotion. There might be things about being different that you deserve to feel anger around. Absolutely. So explore that. In what ways do you need to validate your own emotions so much to maybe even a greater degree because of your difference from the people who are closest to you? So with maneuvering uncomfortable conversations, what makes the conversation uncomfortable? I would really question that. Okay, this is a weird example, but I feel like I want to draw this parallel. I think it's important. So I've coached a lot of women who are survivors of sexual assault. And every single time they will say something to the effect of, well, I don't want to like ruin his life by either reporting or by telling all of our friends or by whatever. Like, I don't want to ruin his life. And the truth is, like, he ruined his life when he decided to forego consent and assault someone. Like, it's very simple. There's nothing, like, you are not ruining his life in any way. That's you trying to take all the responsibility for his choices and actions. And we don't do that here. Okay. So the reason why that's coming up for me right now, when I'm thinking about how to answer this question, and we're going a little over time, but stay with me. When you think about an uncomfortable conversation, what makes it uncomfortable? Is it you having a difference in opinion or you being different that makes the conversation uncomfortable? Or is it people around you who are not accepting of that, or who are rigid and unwilling to discuss? Or is it people who have judgments about how you should and shouldn't be? that are making it uncomfortable. So when you say, how do I maneuver an uncomfortable conversation? I would, of course, start internally. I would ask yourself, what do I think creates this discomfort? What do I think makes this an uncomfortable conversation? Because look, if you're able to become so comfortable with yourself that you can go into a conversation where there's nobody who agrees with you, nobody who really accepts you, nobody who is willing to validate your choices of how to live, which is never necessary, but just for the purposes of this question, if you can be so secure in yourself, then you won't actually need that. And the conversation won't even necessarily seem very uncomfortable. There is nothing uncomfortable when there's no like friction, when there's no tension. And if you don't believe that they need to accept you or see you a certain way or think a certain way about you or not think a certain way about you, then there's no tension there. It's really, really interesting. So again, nothing is here to suggest that you need to move past the anger or the emotions that are surrounding this situation, but also know that it doesn't have to be uncomfortable if you don't want it to be. There doesn't have to be tension here if you don't want there to be. This is, of course, not about changing their thoughts and perceptions and opinions about you. It's all about how you want to shift that internally for yourself. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you guys so much for submitting questions for this Q&A. If you have any questions about me, you can send me a DM or find my website, codependentmillennial.com. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.